The moment her skirt was yanked down in front of the entire office, no one was laughing harder than the man who did it. And no one was louder than the people who didn't stop it. Except her. Because she did laugh. Just once. A sharp, strange, too calm laugh, the kind that makes your spine stiffen. The kind that doesn't come from humor, but from knowing something no one else in the room does. People froze. They expected her to cry, or run, or melt into the corner and disappear. But she didn't. She calmly adjusted her skirt, pulled out her phone, made a single call. "It's time," she said. 10 minutes later, the elevator dinged. Leather shoes stepped onto the marble floor. And when the CEO walked in, no one knew he was coming for her. They also didn't know he was her husband. And when he said, "I want everyone who laughed to stay exactly where they are," you could hear a paperclip clip hit the floor. This isn't just a story about a joke gone too far. It's about who the joke was always on. And what happens when a black woman refuses to stay humiliated. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I want to know who's standing up around the world. Like this video if you believe silence is complicity. And tell me, if this happened to someone in your office, would you have spoken up? Subscribe, because these aren't just stories, they're warnings. And one day, they might be yours. You could feel the shift the moment she walked in. Not because she made a scene, not because she said anything at all, but because of how quiet the office got when she crossed the floor. Her name was Nia Harper, 32. Black, quiet, poised, wearing a plain navy skirt, flat shoes, and a second-hand blouse. She didn't come with a team. She didn't carry a Louis Vuitton tote like the others, and she definitely didn't talk loud enough for anyone to remember her voice. She was temping, just an admin, filling in for a receptionist on maternity leave. Nobody said it out loud, but you could hear the judgment echoing in how they looked at her. The white girls at the front desk smiled, the kind that didn't reach their eyes. The middle-aged office manager didn't even glance up from her screen. And Marcus, the one who would later pull the stunt, he just stared, smirked, whispered something to his friend. Told you they'd send another diversity hire. Nia didn't flinch. She took her little spot at the desk by the elevator, logged in, checked her onboarding checklist, answered emails, responding to calendar invites, smiled when appropriate, stayed invisible when it wasn't. She did her job better than most. But that didn't matter here. Not when you were black and new and didn't come with a connection or a white face to vouch for you. By lunch, they had already assigned her a nickname. Quiet Storm. A cruel little joke, because they said she had storm hair but didn't talk much. She heard it. Of course she did, but she didn't respond. Because Nia had learned a long time ago, growing up in Chicago, working her way through community college, navigating office politics in places that hired her for their brochure photos but not for their boardrooms, that sometimes silence is not weakness. It's the gathering of thunder. But that day, that first day, she said nothing. No mention of her last job, no hint of her education, and certainly no mention of who her husband was. Because Nia Harper didn't need to lead with power. She let disrespect walk in first, so it could be seen clearly when justice followed. Marcus continued to leer. He leaned over her shoulder while she typed, asked questions she already answered, suggested she loosen up a little, and when she didn't laugh at his jokes, he made her the punchline instead. Still, she stayed quiet, because she wasn't here to prove anything. She was here to see something, to feel something, to confirm what she already knew about this company. It took less than 8 hours. By 3:45 p.m., she'd already documented 2 racial microaggressions, 3 inappropriate remarks, and 1 accidental coffee spill on her paperwork. By 4:10, Marcus would make his move. And by 4:12, Nia Harper would make a call that froze the building from the elevator lobby to the executive suite. The lunchroom was where the hierarchy dressed itself in casual clothes. Same cliques, same cruelty, just with sandwiches. Nia walked in holding a brown paper bag, the kind that crumpled softly when you held it. She sat alone at the far end of the room, near the water cooler. Not because she was shy, but because she understood space. She knew how white spaces absorbed you just enough to disarm you, then spit you out as difficult when you didn't smile on cue. Across the room, a group of women scrolled through their phones, comparing handbags, influencers, and brunch spots. Marcus leaned back in his chair, voice just loud enough to be heard. She must think she's at church, dressing like that. Modest Monday, huh? They laughed. Someone chimed in. Maybe she's religious. Another whispered, or just poor. The worst part? Nobody stopped them. A younger black intern named Destiny sat 2 tables away. She glanced at Nia, then quickly looked down, torn between solidarity and survival. Nia caught her eyes for a second and gave her a soft nod. It said, I see you. You don't have to speak today, but I'll remember that you looked away. She opened her container. Rice, steamed cabbage, tilapia, lightly fried. The kind of food they mocked with "what's that smell" jokes. Marcus made a face. Somebody's bringing the ocean to the office. More laughter. She didn't flinch, didn't defend. She just ate slowly, deliberately, chewed with dignity, swallowed with grace. That's what made them angry. That she wasn't ashamed. They'd met women like her before, quiet, black, unmoved. They hated that kind of composure. It robbed them of control. Later, at the vending machine, he accidentally brushed past her, then said loud enough for 2 people to hear, You don't say much, huh? Women like you, y'all always think you're too good. She didn't respond. She stepped aside, returned to her desk. He watched her walk away. The others watched too. One woman smirked and whispered, She probably thinks she's better than us, all calm like that. Trust me, it's an act. They wanted her to react. They wanted anger, so they could say, There it is, the angry black woman. But Nia? She wasn't playing their script. She took notes. She time-stamped remarks. She noticed how HR reps walked by but never looked her in the eye. She caught how Destiny's supervisor constantly redirected questions meant for her. She saw the rot. And she waited. Because Nia knew something they didn't. They saw a temp with flat shoes and a silent mouth. But Nia Harper? She wasn't just watching. She was building the case. And when the moment came, when Marcus crossed the line in front of everyone, the call she'd make wouldn't just shake the room. It would change the entire building. It happened at 4:10 p.m. The hallway between the break room and the executive lounge was busy, the kind of just before clock out buzz where people pretended to still be working while really checking the time. Nia had just delivered the daily reports to the finance assistant. She turned to walk back toward her desk, her posture straight, steps calm. Always calm. That's when Marcus made his move. He leaned against the wall with a mug in his hand, fake laughing with 2 other guys from sales. He spotted her, smirked, and as she passed by he said not quietly, Yo Nia, let me see if you got anything under that librarian skirt. And before she could even process what was happening, he yanked up the back of her skirt. A full grab, a lift, a moment of calculated violation dressed as a joke. The hallway gasped, literally. One woman put a hand over her mouth. Another man laughed, then caught himself and looked away. Destiny dropped her phone. Someone behind them whispered, What the hell? Nia froze. Not because of shame, but because of memory. Because this wasn't the first time in her life a man had touched her like that in public and called it funny. It happened in 9th grade at a bus stop, and again at her first waitressing job. Back then, no one came to her defense, just like now. Marcus laughed louder. Relax, I'm playing. We are all friends here, right? She turned, smoothed her skirt down without a word. The office was silent, not out of guilt, but because no one knew which direction the fallout would go, and nobody wanted to get caught choosing sides. Nia looked at him, really looked. And in that moment, Marcus realized she wasn't embarrassed. She was deciding. She didn't yell, she didn't curse, she didn't cry. Instead, she took out her phone, pressed a number, raised it to her ear. It's done, she said simply. That was it. No drama, no tears, just certainty. Then she turned and walked back to her desk. Each step sounded louder than the last. The hallway didn't move. People avoided eye contact. The air was stiff with something worse than guilt, anticipation. Because for the first time all day, they realized they might have misjudged her. Marcus tried to joke again. Come on, you know I was just playing. You ain't mad, are you? But she didn't turn around. And 2 floors up, an elevator began to descend. Inside it stood a man in a charcoal suit, no tie, calm, controlled. Security badge already scanned. His name was Jordan Harper, CEO. And the moment the doors opened, everyone who had laughed would stop. No one talked for a full minute after she walked away. Not really. The laughter died before it ever reached her back. The whisper started up instead, low, sharp, cowardly things like, "You think she's gonna report it? Come on, it was just a joke." I didn't laugh, I just looked, but they laughed. Even the ones who didn't say a word. Said everything by doing nothing. Destiny sat at her desk, hands trembling over her keyboard. She hadn't moved since it happened. Her mind kept replaying that exact moment. The way Nia didn't flinch, the way she simply dialed the phone, like a woman putting the final piece of a plan in motion. Marcus tried to act normal. Made jokes to cover his panic. Y'all so sensitive, it was funny. Then quieter. She's lucky I didn't mean it. But he was sweating. The receptionist, who always made small talk about brunch, suddenly avoided eye contact. The office manager stayed her glass cube, tapping furiously at her laptop, pretending the moment never existed. And Nia? She returned to her desk, opened a document, started typing like nothing happened. That disturbed them the most. No tears, no raised voice, no threat, just her stillness, her control. Like she already knew how this would end. Then the elevator dinged. Floor 14, footsteps, confidence. Too slow to be delivered, too firm to be HR. Marcus squinted. Who's that? And then he saw him. Jordan Harper, CEO, investor, founder. He didn't wear the typical CEO mask. No over-friendly grin, no performative concern, just a stillness so sharp it sliced through the air. Jordan didn't ask for directions. He didn't look around the office like a stranger. He walked straight to Nia, past the open mouths, past the frozen smirks, past the people who had laughed when her skirt was pulled. He stopped in front of her desk. She looked up. "Is it handled?" she asked, her voice clear even. He nodded once, almost. Then, and only then, he turned to the room. No one breathed. "I'm Jordan Harper," he said slowly. "CEO, co-founder of this company." A gasp rippled through the room like a slow-moving wave. His eyes scanned every face, calm, dissecting. And then he asked the question that made the air leave the building. "Who here touched my wife?" Silence. Marcus turned pale. Nobody answered. So Jordan stepped forward. "Let me clarify. Who violated her and who watched it happen?" The lights above buzzed softly. A voice cracked from the back. "We thought, we didn't know." He held up a hand. "That's the problem. You didn't know because you didn't care." Another whispered, "We thought she was just a temp." Jordan nodded slowly. "Exactly." Then he looked at Marcus and said, "You've got 5 minutes to clean your desk. You're done here." Marcus tried to speak. "You can't fire me. I can do a lot more than fire you. And trust me, this company's about to remember that." He didn't raise his voice, he didn't threaten, he just turned. And in that quiet, every bystander realized, the woman they humiliated, she had just rewritten the hierarchy. The office didn't return to normal, not that day, not ever. After Jordan Harper left, after firing Marcus on the spot and making it known that his wife had been watching everything from the inside, a heavy silence settled in. But that silence didn't last long. The phone started ringing. The first call came from legal, then PR, then the board. And within the hour, someone in marketing whispered what everyone was hoping wasn't true. "It's online." Someone, no one knew who, had captured the tail end of the incident. Not the skirt pull. But what happened after? The moment Jordan walked through the office, the look on Marcus's face, the line that broke the room, "Who here touched my wife?" It hit Twitter first, then TikTok, then Instagram. Her name is Nia started trending by noon the next day. By the end of the week, 3.7 million views, over 12,000 comments, outrage, praise, shock, think pieces, breakdown videos, LinkedIn essays. People weren't just reacting to the clip, they were reacting to the truth behind it. That in corporate America, a black woman can be publicly violated, and the first reaction is laughter, not protection. One user wrote, "I've been Nia. Just didn't have a CEO husband to step in." Another, "Black women carry dignity on their backs while everyone else watches them be torn down." And another, "He didn't save her. He just did what everyone else should have done." The company's official statement arrived 48 hours later. Polished, hollow, committed to equity and inclusion, taking steps to ensure a safe environment, reviewing the situation. But it was too late. The board called an emergency session. Jordan refused to play the optics game. "You want a statement? Fine, here's mine. My wife was harassed, your people laughed, and your silence was louder than his words." He didn't ask for approval. He pulled out a list, 3 names, 2 managers, 1 HR rep. All had witnessed the incident. None had intervened. He fired them, no meetings, no mediators, just accountability. That afternoon, Destiny approached Nia in the elevator lobby. Her voice shook. "I'm sorry, I should have said something." Nia looked at her gently. "I didn't need you to speak for me. I needed you to remember how it felt." Destiny nodded. "I'll remember." And she did. Because by the end of the week, Destiny submitted her own report, not just about the skirt incident, but about months of passive-aggressive comments, sabotage tasks, and professional gaslighting she'd endured from her supervisor. And for the first time, HR listened, because the culture of silence had been cracked wide open. And at the center of it all was Nia Harper. Not the CEO's wife, not the quiet temp, the woman who let them laugh. Just long enough to watch them choke on the sound. Monday morning didn't feel like a Monday. There were no donut boxes in the break room, no small talk by the printer, no "how was your weekend" banter. Just tension. Because this time, the staff wasn't waiting for emails or HR memos. They were waiting for him. Jordan Harper, the CEO, the man who, in a matter of 10 minutes, had shifted the entire office hierarchy without raising his voice. At exactly 9:02 a.m., the glass doors opened. He walked in. No entourage, no assistant. This time, nobody looked away. They stared, because they didn't know whether to fear him or follow him. He didn't stop at his office. He went straight to the conference room, the same one where 3 months ago, the leadership team had voted to pause DEI initiatives to refocus on performance. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. He called for an emergency town hall, not virtual, not pre-recorded, in person. The staff packed the room. Even the ones who never left their cushy corner desks showed up. Nia was there too, not at the back, not by the door, front row, head held high. Jordan stood at the podium and said, "This company failed a black woman, not once, not quietly, but out loud, with witnesses and with laughter." Dead silence. He scanned the room. And the worst part? If I hadn't walked in, most of you would have gone home that night and slept just fine. Nobody moved. We talk about equity. We send out newsletters. But when the moment came, not one of you stood between her and harm. A few heads bowed. He continued, "So here's how this goes now. There is no quiet part anymore. Racism doesn't need a hood or a slur. Sometimes it shows up as a joke, or a silence, or a hand that pulls a skirt, and a room that pulls its eyes away. People look toward the windows, the floor, the door, anywhere but at him. So we're starting over, from the top down." He laid out the new terms: mandatory racial sensitivity retraining, not the old 1-hour slideshow. Third-party audit of every department's hiring and promotion track records, an open portal for anonymous reporting, reviewed directly by his executive team. And then the final blow. Everyone who laughed is already under review. Not just for this incident, but for the culture you helped shape long before she walked in. He paused. This isn't just about Nia. It's about every woman like her who was told to keep it professional while being degraded. Every black employee who had to smile through it to keep their paycheck. Then he turned, faced her. No performance, just respect. "Thank you for reminding me what leadership looks like." She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her presence was louder than anything else in the room. Jordan stepped away from the podium, left the room in silence. And when the door closed behind him, no one dared to speak first, because the hierarchy had shifted, not by accident, not by design, but by reckoning. The reckoning didn't stop at words. It started with receipts. Within 72 hours of Jordan Harper's town hall, a wave of confidential files, past complaints, and suppressed reports began making their way to the surface. It began quietly, a forwarded email here, a screenshot there. Then the dam broke. Someone leaked a 5-page document titled Notes from Previous HR Incidents, Nia Harper. But the timestamps didn't match this incident. They were from 3 years ago, when Nia had applied to this very company before. She had been rejected. No explanation. In the margin, an internal note: polite, competent, but overqualified. Doesn't seem to fit our culture. It was signed by Brenda Mays, the same HR manager who watched Marcus humiliate her and said nothing. Brenda was gone by noon. Then came the old chat logs. Private Slack messages between team members mocking Nia's name, her church outfit, and speculating whether she was the cleaning lady's niece. No one reported it. Several laughed. 2 were in management. Gone. Every sanitized version of the truth they had built, Every glossy internal policy, every Diversity Matters campaign tweet began to unravel under the scrutiny of the very people they thought would never speak. Destiny spoke. She told her story in full. About the time her supervisor told her she was too urban for client-facing roles. About being left out of strategy meetings despite doing most of the back-end work. Another employee, Andre, came forward. He'd been with the company for 6 years, never promoted. Watched 3 less experienced white men climb above him, all of whom once called him cool for a black guy. He never said anything. Until now. Suddenly, the problem wasn't just Marcus. It was the entire ecosystem that enabled him. That laughed with him. That stayed silent. And when media outlets picked up the internal investigation report, when they published quotes from employees anonymously describing a toxic, racially indifferent culture, the company's brand took a hit that no rebrand could fix. Investors wanted answers. A press conference was scheduled. Not by Jordan, but by the board. They wanted to manage the narrative. They wanted Jordan to sit beside them, give a clean statement, smile politely, and say, "We are taking steps to move forward." He refused. Instead, he handed them something else, his resignation letter. But not because he was backing down, because he was going further. He stood on that podium, not as CEO, but as a husband, a black man, and a witness. You don't get to fix a problem by painting over the cracks. You fix it by burning down the rot. He detailed everything, the skirt incident, the HR complicity, the repeated microaggressions, the buried reports, the faces behind every silence. He ended the press conference with a final statement. "I'm not stepping down in disgrace. I'm stepping away because this company was never built for people like my wife, and I refuse to lead something I'd never let my daughter walk into." The room was still, because there was nothing left to say. Only truth. And truth didn't need a mic drop. It already landed. The press conference didn't just shake the company, it shattered it. Within hours, social media was flooded with demands. Fire every manager who left. Release the internal DEI report, or we will. We don't want apologies, we want resignations. And resignations came, but not voluntary ones. Jordan may have stepped down, but he didn't vanish. Before walking away, he'd secured a third-party legal team to audit the company from the inside. A firm with no ties to the board, no loyalty to the brand. Their job? To name names, to connect laughter to payroll, to trace silence back to leadership. The results were devastating. Brenda Mays, terminated. She had ignored 5 formal complaints of inappropriate workplace behavior in the past 18 months. All 5 involved women of color. None were escalated. David Combs let go. Senior VP of Marketing. He had reposted the original video clip privately in a company Slack group, adding the comment, "That's what happens when you act too holy in a corporate space." Rebecca Ellis, demoted and placed under review. She watched Marcus violate Nia, didn't intervene. 2 days later, she texted another manager, "Why did the temp act like royalty? It wasn't that deep." 3 junior staff removed immediately, all identified in Slack chat history, laughing, sharing emojis calling Nia the skirt lady. But it didn't end there. A 4th name surprised everyone. Derek Linwood, head of HR strategy. He didn't laugh, he didn't text, he didn't touch. But 3 different employees, anonymously, said he looked up when it happened, saw it, then turned his head away. His crime? Deliberate inaction. His silence gave others permission. He was asked to resign. By the end of the week, over a dozen pink slips were issued. Each one read like a verdict. But Mia? She didn't celebrate. She didn't tweet. She didn't do interviews. She stayed quiet because she hadn't spoken out for the headlines. She had spoken to break the cycle. And while the company scrambled to recover, rehire, and rebrand, she was already doing something else. In her small apartment on the edge of the city, a laptop screen glowed with a new website banner. The Harper Foundation, Workplace Justice, Racial Equity, Unfiltered Truth. Led by survivors, built for the silenced. The mission? To protect Black women in professional spaces, to give them a place to report abuse, to make sure that what happened to Nia wasn't just punished, it was prevented. Destiny was the first to sign up, then Andre, then hundreds. Because when a Black woman stands up, not by shouting, not by begging, but by enduring, people listen differently. Especially when silence is no longer safe. It started with a thick piece. An op-ed in the Washington Post titled, "Her skirt was pulled," The company looked away. Why black women aren't safe at work. The author had never met Nia, but she'd lived 1,000 versions of her story. The article exploded. Within days, it was syndicated across multiple platforms. Then came the panel discussions, the podcasts, the workplace culture reels, the corporate responses. But this wasn't just a media storm. It was a reckoning. The Harper Foundation was flooded with emails. Women from across the country, nurses, tech interns, bank tellers, professors, all sharing one thing. This happened to me too. I just didn't have anyone who showed up when it did. And at the center of it all was a photo, not Jordan, not of the press conference, but of Nia, sitting on the edge of a park bench, no makeup, wind in her hair, holding a paper cup of tea. Her expression? Calm, not triumphant, not angry, just still. That image was featured on the cover of Essence. Below it, the words, "We warned you. You laughed. We're not laughing now." Nia never asked for that spotlight. She didn't tour it. She didn't brand it. But she did something far more powerful. She redirected it. With the help of Destiny and Andre, she launched Echo Office Watch, a digital tool where employees could anonymously rate and report their company's racial culture. Not about Glassdoor salaries or benefits. Just how safe black employees truly felt. The platform reached 100,000 users in 3 weeks. Major corporations began scrambling to assess their scores. One company in Chicago issued a statement admitting it had underestimated internal racial discomfort. Another CEO in Boston voluntarily stepped down after his company's Echo rating dropped below 2.1. Meanwhile, the company that started it all, they tried to recover, changed their mission statement, posted black squares again, offered to reinstate Nia with a high-ranking DEI position. She declined. "You can't offer me a seat at a table that was built on silence." Instead, she sent them a recommendation list. 5 black women with long histories in policy, ethics, and reform, all overqualified, all ignored in their previous applications. They hired 2. It wasn't enough, but it was something. And that's how change works. Not always with marches, not always with bullhorns, but sometimes with one woman who walks into a room full of silence and refuses to shrink. Sometimes it takes one public laugh at a black woman's expense to reveal how many private wounds have been festering beneath professionalism. Nia didn't expose a company. She exposed a pattern, one that had existed in conference rooms, group chats, elevator side eyes, and whispered slurs masked as sarcasm for decades. And for once, the world paid attention. The first time Nia spoke publicly, it wasn't at a rally. It was at a community center in East Baltimore, where folding chairs creaked and the walls smelled like fresh paint and old stories. No podium, no camera crew, just a room full of people who had been told time and time again that professionalism meant enduring silence. She wore the same skirt, the one they tried to humiliate her in, and when she stood up, she didn't tell the crowd what happened to her. She told them what happens to us. Every time we walk into a room where we're the only black woman, we carry the weight of everything they don't say and everything they feel too comfortable saying when no one else is around. She paused. But we also carry something heavier. Our mother's dignity, our sister's warnings, and our daughter's future. That weight? That's not something we lay down. That's something we stand on. The room was silent, then a slow clap, then all of them, standing. Not because she was famous, but because she had said what many never dared to. After the event, an older woman hugged her, whispered, "You said it soft, but it cut like steel." That was her gift. Not rage, not revenge, restoration. She didn't become a full-time activist, didn't launch a YouTube channel or ride the algorithm. She went back to being who she was, a quiet force, a builder of things that last. A woman who knew how to watch a system crumble, then hand the bricks to someone who could do better. Jordan, her husband, became her silent partner in the Harper Foundation. No suits, no headlines, just files, calls, and strategy. Destiny became the director of Echo Watch. Andre started a workplace trauma support group. And the company? Well, they're still trying, because when you've spent years mistaking your silence for safety, and your smiles for consent, and your black coworkers for background, it takes time to unlearn the lie. But the truth has already been spoken, and now it echoes. Not just in Nia's name, but in every break room where someone finally says, "That wasn't okay." In every elevator where someone asks, "Did you hear what they said to her?" In every office where laughter doesn't cover complicity anymore. If you've ever been made to feel small in a room built on your silence, let this be your reminder. Your presence is not the problem. Their discomfort with your dignity is. Drop your city or country in the comments. I want to know where our voices are rising. Tell me, have you ever witnessed something you should have stopped? Or stood alone when no one else did? Share it below. Like this video if you believe silence isn't neutral. It's a choice. Subscribe, because stories like this aren't fiction. They're real, and next time, they might be yours.